Breaking news this afternoon. One person is dead in a crash involving a train and a truck. We're tracking down the latest details from the scene.
Investigators crack a major bourbon theft ring, but they say the case is far from closed. We'll tell you where it stands now, one day after a grand jury indicted 9 people.
New details today about a dog who died after being dragged, why the owner calls it an accident.
Tracking, alerting, protecting. WKYT News starts now with breaking news.
We continue to track the investigation into a deadly crash in Scott County this afternoon. A dump truck collided with a train just before 3 o'clock this afternoon.
That crash happened at a private crossing on a farm off of Rogers Gap Road north of the Toyota plant. An 80-year-old man who was driving the truck died. WKYT's Garrett Weimer is at the scene with the breaking details.
The Scott County Sheriff says Stanley Hammonds was trying to cross the railroad tracks with a load of gravel when his dump truck was hit by a train. It happened around 2:30 here at a farm off Rogers Gap Road. The sheriff says Hammonds was crossing the tracks with a load of gravel in his truck. At this point, they aren't sure whether the driver stopped on the tracks or whether his truck stalled, but we're told the train hit the dump truck on the passenger side of the cab. Now, the family was out here just a little bit ago talking with the sheriff and the coroner. The sheriff says they have now gone to be with other members of the family. In Scott County, Garrett Weimer, WKYT.
Garrett, thank you. One day after a grand jury indicted 9 people in a crime ring involving $100,000 in stolen bourbon, we're told the case isn't over.
The Franklin County Sheriff's Office says that people continue to call in wanting to discuss the investigation. Our Sean Moody shows us what else investigators hope to find in our top story today at 5.
Franklin County Sheriff Pat Melton says he started getting phone calls from people who wanted to talk about this case first thing this morning. He says it's still an open investigation. He thinks there's still a lot of bourbon out there. Melton said his investigators first found 5 barrels of stolen wild turkey bourbon on Gilbert Kurtzinger's property back in March.
5 barrels was I thought that was a lot.
But he said the investigation turned up more and more bourbon across the state, eventually crossing the $100,000 mark.
We kept getting more barrels and more barrels, and up to 18, and then the contents out of a 19th one.
A Franklin County grand jury indicted 9 people on account of engaging in organized crime. Melton says he thinks there's still more bourbon out there.
We know there's 9 more barrels, those stainless steel barrels of equal rare out there, 17-year-old bourbon, $11,000 a barrel. So we know there's a significant amount that's still out there.
He said people started calling his office this morning wanting to talk about the case. He said if you think you may have bought stolen bourbon, the best thing to do is call it in.
The other folks that have barrels or bottles, we're very interested in them giving those up and coming in and talking to us.
Now, a lot of people have been asking what will happen to the bourbon. Sheriff Melton said most of the bourbon that's in those barrels will need to be destroyed after the trial. He said he's hoping that some of the Pappy Van Winkle that's in those sealed bottles could be returned to the Van Winkle family. In Frankfort, Sean Moody, WKYT.
Several of the people who were indicted will be arraigned on May 22nd.
We are learning new details about a dog dragged along a southern Kentucky road. Someone found the boxer in a ditch along Kentucky Highway 1006. The dog later died at a vet's office. Now the owner has come forward to explain what happened. WKYT's Phil Pendleton is tracking the case.
Animal rescuers who talk to the dog's owners tell me that they live a couple of miles down this roadway here on Highway 1006. The dog was found just in front of me on the other side of the London Airport gate. There's still a lot of questions on what happened, and we still don't know if those that own this dog, those who did this, are going to face any charges. The Laurel County Sheriff's Office says they have taken statements from everyone involved, and information will be presented to the next term of the grand jury. The dog was discovered about 8 Tuesday morning, and homeward bound, a local animal rescue group was called. Christina McCreary says the dog's owners contacted them and said the whole thing was just a big accident, that their child left the dog tied to the back of his father's truck and he drove off. She says another driver saw the dog and flagged him down, but his argument, told by his wife to Homeward Bound, is that he thought the dog was already dead. McCreary says she drove the area from where the owners lived to where the dog was found, and she said what she found was very disturbing.
We did find the blood trail. You could tell where the dog had ran down the road behind the vehicle for a period of time, and then you can see the point at which it was no longer able to keep up with the vehicle. The blood trail did extend for a long period of time.
Now, as for the dog, I'm told that he will be cremated, but that cannot be done until the investigation is over. Coming up at 6 o'clock, you'll hear the 911 call from the person who found the dog yesterday morning. For now in Laurel County, Phil Pendleton, WKYT.
Homeward Bound tells us even if what happened was just an accident, the owner should have tried to get help and not left that dog in a ditch. Well, if you have already done some planting, you'll need to cover them up tonight.
That's right. We have some chilly air pushing into the area, which means a frosty start to the day tomorrow. WKYT Chief Meteorologist Chris Bailey's here to tell us how cold it will go.
Yeah, I think some areas are going to press close to the freezing mark first thing tomorrow morning, so a little kiss of frost is certainly a possibility. You look outside on a day like this, it looks the part of spring, looks the part of late April, got everything in full bloom out there. Then all of a sudden you step outside and you feel temperatures that are colder than normal and a gusty wind, upper 50s to around 60. Wind still, though, closing in on 30 miles per hour with some of those gusts this afternoon. A lot of upper 50s, as good as it could get today. Look at Covington, 54 degrees. It's into the 30s right now into parts of Indiana and Ohio, northern parts of those states, but that's still crazy cold for this time of year up there. Live First Alert Defender, nothing going on with clear skies, low humidities, winds that are going to calm down. Green thumbs beware tonight. You're going to have to cover the plants, the vegetation. Frosty nights ahead, not only tonight, but again tomorrow night when a light freeze is possible for some areas. That leads us into the weekend. Think it's going to get better? Well, it may warm up a little bit. It's all relative, but that comes with a price, guys. Showers and thunderstorms increase into the start of that weekend. We'll time the boomers. Let you know about the potential for some stronger storms when I come back with the hour-by-hour forecast with new information on that in just a few minutes.
The case against a murder suspect is moving forward. Our county-by-county coverage begins in Madison County, where Billy Chadwell has a preliminary hearing this morning. Chadwell is accused of killing Francisco Martinez Castillo. Castillo's body was found in Silver Creek near Richmond earlier this month. The case was waived to a grand jury during today's hearing. In Campbell County, testimony continued today in the trial of a woman accused of killing her boyfriend. Police say that Shayna Hubers shot and killed Ryan Poston in October of 2013. Today, a psychologist detailed meetings he had with Hubers in jail following the shooting. He told the jury Hubers has a very high IQ, as well as being bipolar and a personality disorder. He says Hubers also told him she shot Poston in self-defense. Her lawyers could wrap up their case today.
The sentencing phase of the Boston Marathon bombing trial continued today with more testimony from survivors. The jury must decide if Johar Tsarnaev will get the death penalty or life in prison. Chris Van Cleve has more from Boston.
This is the image lawyers for convicted Boston Marathon bomber Johar Tsarnaev fought to keep the jury deciding if he lives or dies from seeing. The photo, which is now evident, shows Tsarnaev making a crude gesture to a jail camera hours before his arraignment. Ballroom dancer Adrienne Haslett Davis survived losing part of her leg in the bombings. Through tears, she said she called out to her husband Adam. "I thought that because I couldn't hear myself scream, I was dead." She told jurors she came to court alone because her husband bravely admitted himself to a mental facility. Survivor Eric Wally, who still has shrapnel lodged in his brain, choked up and struggled to find words to explain being separated from his wife after the bombings, finally managing, "She thought I was dead. I thought she was dead." The prosecution could wrap up its case in the penalty phase as early as Thursday. The defense is not cross-examining victims or families. The stepfather of slain MIT police officer Sean Collier called his murder devastating, telling the court Collier's mother was so distraught she couldn't get out of bed for months. He said when they saw Collier's body, he had a hole in his head. He was shot to pieces. "My wife was touching him, and his blood is coming off on her hands." Chris Van Cleve, CBS News, Boston.
All 12 jurors must agree in order to impose the death sentence. Otherwise, Tsarnaev will receive life in prison without the possibility of release. A Lexington teen will be among those walking for a cure to arthritis this weekend. We'll show you how she's doing her part to fight the condition.
What you drink can play a role in your heart health. The findings of a new study on sugary beverages in better living.
And Eastern Kentucky University has a few new employees. Find out what these sheep will be doing for the school on WKYT News at 5:30.